Podcast.
What you are about to hear is Roland Moya read his affidavit word for word from what happened that night. We also have a conversation about what he felt about reading this document for the first time in over 20 years.
On Friday night at approximately 6:30 p.m., my cousin Robert Espericueta, brother Alberto Lira Moya, and brother-in-law Antonio Salinas Jr. left Edinburgh to go fishing in South Padre Island. We arrived approximately at 9 p.m. and docked at the Sea Ranch fishing pier on the island. We put our 17-foot Glastron fishing boat on the bay, which is between South Padre Island and Port Isabel, and began to fish. We noticed that the causeway lights were 3/4 off, with only 1/4 of the lights were on. We also saw that the channel lights were not on. On Saturday at approximately 12:45 a.m., we noticed a barge that was traveling north and appeared to be a far distance. At 1:30 a.m., we were about 500 yards from the north side of the causeway when we heard a big bang and followed by a splash. We turned on spotlights to see what was happening and noticed a motor vehicle fall off the causeway into the water, the bay. We immediately threw our fishing equipment out of the boat and were raising our anchor when we saw another vehicle had fallen off the causeway. We also called 911 on my cellular phone. I couldn't understand the 911 male operator, so I called 3 times in a row. We then observed approximately 6 to 10 vehicles falling off the causeway. We traveled to where the vehicles were falling, and during the travel time, we were waving flares at the vehicles that were approaching the area where the vehicle had fallen. We had not seen the extent of the damage that the causeway had received until we got closer. We heard and saw the barge strike the causeway sideways and cause the causeway to sway. We slowed down and started looking for survivors. We noticed debris everywhere, including car parts floating on the water. We noticed vehicles that had fallen off the causeway semi-afloat and were being carried off by the water current. At that point, we heard a female crying out for help, and with our spotlight, we found her and carried her out of the water and put her in the boat. The female was yelling that she had made it and thanking us for helping her. We then looked around and heard several voices, and we looked them and had a hard time finding them because of the debris. We then saw a male victim with trauma to his head. I later found out his name was Rene Mata. We got Mata in front of our boat and noticed another older male. Later I found out his name was Gustavo in the water. Mata was telling us about his severe back pain, and if we had found his female passenger named Robin. With Mata still holding onto our boat, we moved over to Gustavo, and Gustavo made it over the rear of the boat, and we helped him get on the boat. We saw a female who we believe was Robin and another unidentified person in the water in front of us. At that point, we pulled Mata on our boat and gave him a shirt for his head wound and covered him with a towel. We noticed 2 Coast Guard ships approach both sides of the causeway. I told my cousin Robert that we needed to get Mata to the Coast Guard ship because of his injuries. The Coast Guard men got there to the scene striking up cigarettes instead of having rescue equipment. They got closer and we told them about Mata's injuries and that there were people in the water. No one moved, and they continued smoking and looking at the causeway. They then stated that they did not have spotlights and told us to take the victims to the other ship on the other side of the causeway. They wanted us to travel through the damaged area. The female survivor that we on our boat did not want to go through the area that was damaged. We started questioning the female and Gustavo about who was with them. Both female and Gustavo stated that they were alone. We traveled on to the other side of the bridge and met the other Coast Guard ship. The Coast Guard took the female and Gustavo off the ship, and a Coast Guardsman named Chris jumped onto our boat and checked on Mata. About 5 minutes later, the Coast Guard told us that we were going to the Coast Guard station with Chris, so they put the female and Gustavo back on our boat. Before we left, we told the Coast Guard that we had seen 2 other persons out in the water. We arrived at the Coast Guard station, and there was no EMS personnel there. We helped Gustavo off our boat and laid him on the dock. EMS arrived and treated Gustavo and Mata. The female walked over to a bench and sat down. EMS advised us that the causeway was damaged, they couldn't transport. So they put Gustavo back on our boat and back on a backboard, and Coast Guard told us to take him to the Port Isabel side. EMS told us to leave the victims there because I guess they meant to say we were not a rescue vessel, and we told them his people needed to go to the hospital. They took Gustavo and Mata off my boat, and EMS stayed with them. We then went back to the scene with Coast Guardsman Chris on our boat. Chris then jumped on the Coast Guard vessel. A Port Isabel fireman jumped into our boat and the fireman requested we would get closer to the scene because we had a smaller boat. We circled the area once, and the fireman received information that the electricity was off from the causeway and asked to take him back to the Coast Guard boat to get the divers. The divers jumped into the water and swam towards the accident scene, and we followed them with the spotlight. As we were making our way to the scene, we observed boats with Border Patrol and state troopers approaching. We signaled to them about the divers in the water. We then heard the Border Patrol say that the electricity was not off yet, and the fireman told the diver that it was their call to stay in the water. I heard one of the divers say that he had seen a deceased victim in the red truck and was pinned. The other 2 divers said they needed air tanks and the jaws of life equipment. All 3 divers climbed on our boat and headed to Port Isabel. We then docked our boat. We then spoke to a Port Isabel pastor, and in a short while, 3 state troopers asked us about what had happened. We were also told to stick around because they needed us to speak to us. That's the end of the statement.
So how does it feel reading this 20 years later? When's the last time that you saw this?
I saw, the last time I saw it was during the mediation, because I kind of wanted a copy of this. And I think if you kind of look at the opening, they kind of just like, all right, this is the opening, and now they get to the thick of the story. Mm-hmm. But when you guys had found it, Robert had said, "Hey, I found the statement. You gotta read this." I got chills seeing my initials because I was like, "Wow, this is probably the oldest piece of document that's out there, other than my Social Security card. That had my little kid signature on it, that has my signature on it." And then so I read it, and at first though I was a little kind of disappointed because the parts of the story that I had wanted in it were not mentioned, which was the 911 with the foreign accent. I mentioned it, and I couldn't understand the guy. But then after when I read the whole story, I loved it because it just kind of just fit with Robert's part of the story before you guys even got the statements. Yeah. And I had said it then, once you get the statements, you'll see that the story matches up. It wasn't 100%, but it's like you said, you read it, we go over it, we kind of visit, and you kind of remember these little things back and forth. But this is the heart of it. This is enough to say, yes, they did see this. Yes, they were there, and yes, they were a part of this. And that's the beauty about this podcast. That 20 years from now, that the story will forever live, whether I'm here or not. And then there'll be video, there'll be audio, and this statement.
Let me ask you this. We got some backlash, and this is not our intention to be able to pick at those scabs, right? Tell us about that. Tell us about what your thought process is about us telling this story.
It's a part of the story that's never been told. And now people know that we were there, and people know that we stayed some lives. Well, some people. But the big part, the big chunk of it, the part that I had mentioned, you didn't want my version of it a year after because you would have had a young man here pounding his fist and how dare they and blah blah blah. But the heart of it was that the Coast Guard arriving and not assisting. The part where I mentioned clearly that the Border Patrol and the state troopers were just kind of in the way of us helping these divers out, because when I mentioned that we were keeping an eye on the divers, they swam from the boat on the surface of the water to the cars, and we had to be yelling at them, "Hey, there's people in the water, get your boat further away," because the current was so strong. And you could tell that some of these people were not experienced boat drivers, or whatever you want to call it. I can't think of the terminology right now. So when I read that part, I had told the story, but I never told that part because it was not an important factor. But it is now, 20 years later, because you have so many people saying, well, why weren't other people rescued? Why weren't victims taken out earlier? I mean, I think it was up to day 3 that they were still taking victims out. So that was a real powerful part of reading the statement. And I told you that it's my signature. I mean, it's a little different now, but that's 20 years ago. I gave this statement to a Texas Ranger. And then the part of, I guess, being in shock is when I heard you guys mention that we had taken some kind of sample. Yeah. Whether we had alcohol.
Toxicology reports, yeah.
And it came out negative, which is awesome. And Robert said it best. What fishing trip do you ever hear of that didn't have beer on the boat? Yeah. Especially a night fishing trip. Yeah. But I guess it goes back to the whole thing that we were being prepped. We were being prepared for what was about to happen, and obviously alcohol in our system, or if anyone was partaking in anything else, would have really hindered. Yeah, it would have hindered our ability to respond to it.
It's so interesting. How do you feel about like everybody that's complimenting on it, or everybody that's commenting on this? Well, how do you take that?
It's a great feeling because I was really worried about any negative that could have come from it, and it's kind of hard to. Well, how do you say anything negative about what some guys try to do their best out there? The reason I felt that way is because a part of me and a part of the guys, we feel that we could have done more. We really could have with what little that we had, and I had mentioned it earlier. The fact that we made these visits away from the site because going to the Coast Guard was away from the site. Going to the other part of the bridge where the other Coast Guard is at. Then we got the trip to their Coast Guard station, the trip back to Port Isabel, got off the boat, got on the boat, and then headed back to help the divers. All that time, nothing was done. And it's not like we were in charge. I mean, you would think we were the ones in charge of it, and then time just froze until we got back to tell these people what to do. That's really how it's really seemed to us, because how do you not already have that guy out of the car? How do you not have more victims rescued? Because I honestly feel that they could have been rescued. I really feel there's no excuse that there was 3 days that these people had to be down there. And then the horrible part is showing these pictures to the family. That was just horrible.
Yeah, they showed it while you all were in court.
While we were in court, I was on the screen. I mean, there wasn't expensive LEDs and all that, so that somehow they projected it on the screens, and it was just the vehicle being pulled with the cranes that they had out there. And to this day, I have no idea why they even bothered to show that. But we had to deal with that, and it was a lonely ride home because it was like, damn, man, we really could have done more. We really could have done more. And then that's when the anger sets in, and the people that were trained, the people that should have been out there, even the simple thing of holding a spotlight on the divers, something so simple had to be done by us.
Wow.
I can't believe there wasn't another vessel out there that could have assisted the divers like that. They literally had to wait for us to get there.
Let me take you back to when the vehicle started falling in. Robert was saying, no way, I'm taking you guys out of here.
Yeah.
What was going through your head at that time that you wanted to go?
Well, after the bang, and us, I remember we were listening to the Q 94.5 at the time. His boat had a thing. We kind of lowered it, and Robert had a spotlight, the water, and all that. We didn't know that the bridge was completely out. We just figured there was an auto accident, and the car went over the railing. So going out, I mean, I didn't even think we cut the anchor. I know we were pulling in. I think we ended up cutting it because the anchor was not on board. And Robert was, sincere. He was no bullshitting. He's like, yeah, right. We're not going to do this. And something, divine intervention, man. Something just took over, and it was adrenaline pumping. But there was this calmness to reassure everyone. This is what we got to do. We got to get in there. We got to save these people's lives. And I clearly remember telling Robert, there could be kids out there, and that's such a big thing because at the time I wasn't a father. Robert was, and so was my brother. But the love for a child, I had no idea what that was. But that was the one thing that I could remember just thinking there could be kids. Not that the value of a life of anyone is weighed by their age, but that was such a big thing for me to mention. And Robert's counsel was in the center, and I remember just grabbing his head and kissing him, like thanking him, like, thank you, let's do this, let's go in there. I had gone to Net Magnet School, South Texas High School for Health Professions, Med High, and had the very little of first aid training that they give you there. And that's even when I paid attention in class. But I had this game plan, and part of the game plan was we gotta make room. So all the fishing, we didn't even reel up our lines. I'm talking just throw them out. Brand new nice pen reels. We just threw them overboard. The ice chests that were not stationary because we had taken some with us for the fish that we didn't even catch. They need to change your story, not fishermen. Just guys, you say a bunch of guys that were out there. That's a big title to give us a
boat
fisherman.
Guys.
Yeah, some boat guys, some boat enthusiasts. We cleared the boat of anything that was not screwed down, with the exception of the padding, because we knew that we were going to be putting people. And there's an eerie feeling of when that was happening, because I remember clearly knowing and telling them, guys, we're going to see some bodies. We're going some of these people could not have made it. And I think back, I have no medical training. I've never been in the military. I've never had anything happened to prepare me for this calmness that came over me that night, and just get things going. And everyone was on board, man. Everyone started throwing things off, clearing the way. I think the one bag that we kept, but only because it had some clothes and some towels, which we used later on. And that was a blessing that we didn't even throw that over. That stayed on board because we had to stop his bleeding. We had to, cover his head. It played out. I remember that so clearly. I remember I was wearing flip flops too that day. So I think I just tossed those, and I ended up having to get someone bring me some shoes because it was just like, if it wasn't going to help us, it was off the boat.
Yeah.
It was completely off the boat. It was pretty. It's we share the story, and even I think people still don't feel the huge impact that it had, witnessing it, smelling it, the water splashing on us, every little bit of it. Us being burnt. Robert had no idea that his swim trunks were melted to his skin until the EMS pointed it out. So the adrenaline for us was just raging.
Wow. It's just this, like I keep saying it, this story has so much depth, and like I said, we're trying to get a hold of people that were in it, people that were on the boats helping people that night. I mean, anybody, even the survivors. And we understand that it might not be time for them to share this yet, but when it is, we have a just open invitation. Please reach out to us. And
I think if you were to get any of the survivors, I think the best way, the respectful way to approach it is just, how are they doing today? There's no need to share the story. We've shared what we did, what happened, and don't get me wrong. If they want to share that part of the story, that'd be great, because we never knew exactly what they were thinking when the cars were falling. We never had that conversation, and it wasn't out of I say respect. It wasn't out of respect for it. It was just, when we finally got together, we were like a family unit. We all experienced something together. Theirs was more horrific than ours. More horrific. I can't imagine what they went through. It was just this mutual respect of just, and even getting a thanks from them was a little weird. It was just like, no, this is something that needed to be done, and we did it. And we were fortunate enough to do it. But if they were to come on, what are you up to today? What amazing things have you've done? What hardships have you accomplished? God had a plan for you. What was that plan at the end of it? And something that we haven't even mentioned. Gustavo's wife was like 3-4 months pregnant at the time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so he would have left a child without a father had he had passed.
Wow.
And that's a story we got to hear later. But everyone, they have their story, and there's no need to bring up the tragedy. We already got that. We got that covered. If they want to mention, that's fine. But where are you today? What's going on? That'd be awesome.
Because this story has the human element, the real life human element. You're a real person, and we talked about there that Robert's a real person. Yeah. Everybody is a real person, and tragedy happened. Yeah. And then the thing that sucks about it is life still goes on, so we still got to get back up and go and do what we have to do.
Think about it this way. Their experience crossing that bridge now is way more intense than anything that me and Robert would feel. Yeah. The family members that lost people, what do they experience? I can't even imagine what that would feel like, what that would be like. There's parts. I went to San Antonio about, I don't know, it's probably been like 3-4 years now, maybe even longer. And I lost my father in San Antonio. There's roads that my mom will not go down. Wow. Because she remembers a conversation she had with my father, and some of them may not even be negative conversations. They may even be positive. She suffers from her own post-traumatic stress of losing my father. And so when I started to see that, and then the podcast came out, and I was thinking how exciting it would be to have them on, and it makes sense that they would not want to come on. They would not. They're not ready to come on. 20 years is a long time. Yeah. We were ready. We weren't ready 10 years ago. We weren't ready 5 years ago. We definitely weren't ready a year later, and that's why the story was just put away. It was just quieted. It'd be really great. That'd be a huge gift for us, because hearing where are you today? How what's going on? How's your son? Or I think he had a son. Bridget, I don't even know if she ever had children. And Renee, what's Renee up to? Yeah. Sorry, I never sent you a happy birthday on Facebook when we were Facebook friends, but even that's a powerful message, that we became Facebook friends and really never spoke. really never talked to each other about it. And he would get tagged on the anniversary ceremony, and hey, did you see it? And I would get like, oh man, I don't think he wants to see this.
Yeah.
And maybe he's just not ready. Maybe they need longer. And my mom's been going through this for 2 years now. I'm a still man. She may never be ready to go down those roads.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, because even my mom was called me the other day, and we were talking about that maybe they're just not ready to tell their side of the story yet, because she's lost her brother, my uncle, and how would I like, or how would she like it if somebody was telling the story about what happened to him?
Right. And that's the beauty about it, is that we're just giving our version and including the names only because that's the person. It'd be disrespectful not to label them person A, person B, person C. We've not shared any of the emotions that they had that day. We shared some of the pain that they were going through. But their backstory, out of respect for them, all of us are without even discussing it, I just taking that part of the story. And if we keep it for the rest of our lives, well, then that's just the gift that we've given to them, and vice versa.
Yeah.
The rest of the story, Paul Harvey there, is for us. It's for us to keep and respect for them.
Yeah. Well, with that being said, guys, we'd like to thank you all very much for tuning in. Roland, anything else you want to say before we finish this off?
I just want to thank you again. Really, I just really want to thank you for what you're doing. This is awesome. There's no better way to do this. And I had mentioned this earlier. I took a road trip to Vegas, and I popped on the podcast, and I had listened to it already several times. But when you listen to it, it's you know, and I had it on the speaker so everyone could hear it in the car. I heard the comment saying, "Man, it's like a movie. It's like a movie you're watching, and you have it broken up perfectly. It's like a series." And then they had mentioned when you had the Gaspard on, it's great because you know what's happening, you know what's going to happen, and now you got like a little flashback of Gaspard and what he went through, and that was all new to me and everything. I've yet to listen to JP's because JP just didn't exist in our world, because it was part of the story that got hidden, part of the story that was put away, and the guy's a hero. You know, anyone that was out there that night was a huge hero because of what they did. Those are heroes because they were trained to do that, and they rushed out there and they did it. And the fact that, and it's in my statement, the fact that they waited for us, they had to wait for us to get them closer, to protect them with the spotlight from being run over by other boats. That's sad, but at the same part, imagine the eagerness of them to get in there for those 30, 40 hours that we were gone. The eagerness for them to jump in the water. And that's what they did. Once they found out that we were willing to take them and guide them, that's what they did. They jumped in. Those guys, I don't know any of their names, but those guys are the heroes. You know? Yeah,
there's a lot of unsung heroes in this story, and we're starting to see them come out weekly. And I encourage you, even if you don't feel like you're a hero or you have something just to share with us, call us, send us a message. We'd love to get your side, your perspective of what happened tonight, because we are telling the true story of the Queen Isabella Causeway collapse. With that being said, guys, we'll see y'all later.
Thank you.
Bye.